Hello, Gearmo here. I released Noise Commander .3 2 weeks ago, but I never made a video about it, so I wanted to explain what it's about here. And I want to start with some questions by one of my Patreons, Capsule Ghost. So his first question was how to change the BPM, and it should be easier to find now. Just select it, press A, and then you can use the up and down cursor to change the tempo here, and you can move over to adjust the decimal values. There's no tap tempo or nudging yet. That'll come in the future. Then the second question was how to change the pads and assign different sounds. So if a pad is selected, you can simply go over here to the category and hold A to select different folders. So let's say I wanted all these to be kicks and all these to be snares, etc. You get the idea. The way you manage these folders and categories, if you press up and you get to the samples category view, and here you have your categories. By default, there's a template which gives you those folders, but you can create your own if you select a slot, press Y, choose directory, and then jump to your folder, so jungle loops maybe, hit enter, and then your category will be named by the folder. So I could go now here and go through and assign jungle loops. It's super quiet. Let's crank up the volume. That's how you manage categories and samples. Yeah, the next question was, can you preview sample names or sample file names as they are selected? And I think I misunderstood him because in his follow-up he clarified this. But what I did then is I added like this section here. So when I use the Y button here to cycle through the samples, we can see the names like that. But what he meant was more like to have some kind of pop-up to select, to browse the file names. That's something I'll work on in the future. One more thing about the sample management. You can see now we're using 99%, like all our memory is used. We can press start to clear the unused samples, to make space for loading new samples. So we can kind of rotate, and use the samples we like and quickly discard the other ones to make room and like continuously load new random samples until there's really no more memory to work with. I added a manual in version .2, which you can open by pressing L and R together. It should contain most of the shortcuts and everything you need to get started. You can scroll up and down with the C pad and jump page-wise with the left and right D-pad buttons, and up and down jumps to the individual sections. I made some changes to these buttons at the bottom here. By default, pressing a pad will actually trigger the sound, but if you toggle this one, you can select pads in order to make changes without triggering the sound. Then there's this record. It's just to record into the sequencer. And then there are some new modes here. The left one is just your default pads. Let's see what we have here. Of course, we have a piano. We have the roll function, which is like a temporary loop of the sequence, of a little fraction of the sequence. Then samples is new. In this mode, the 16 buttons trigger samples from its category. You can trigger the first 16 and record a performance if you want, or just use it to find and select sounds. Then slices, similarly, that will play the slices, and I will demonstrate that later with a loop. I also added a second page in the instrument editor that you can toggle by pressing start. And one thing that's new is the gated play mode, which is disabled by default, but if you enable it, You can play shorter or longer notes and also record them. Alright, so now we have got some hi-hats, so I can show the swing. This is no swing, and that is when I gradually bring it in, we get more. It's currently a global setting, but it will be available per track later. Patrons may opt in to be displayed in the credit screen here. To do that, they need to drop a line in the corresponding post on the page. Pressing up will bring you to this screen where the bottom half is a bit sort of a mixer, where you can change the bus volume of the 4 buses, the crossfading between the 2 decks, and then this is all a bit temporary, but yeah, you have like some cutoff. So everything like in this range at the bottom is hard-coded to only affect bus 2. And then we have the folding. You can just use it to just saturate the mix and make everything louder. And the smaller the width is, the more you will get into distortion. The folding noise I find very pleasant, and you can then play with the cutoff. And there's a sample reducing effect, which is global. Unfortunately, these cannot be animated yet. In this section here, we see button assignments. Y is assigned to cycling the sample, B is escape, X is opening the Euclidean sequencer, and A will mute the current pad, for example. When I move the cursor up, you see that they changed. So now there's Y is listen, B is still escape, X is reset value, A is do or edit. So holding A, allows to change values, or when I select a button, A will just trigger the button. And B will always sort of escape back to selecting the last track. And then there are these special buttons here, which are sort of a context for operations. They're currently only working in conjunction with sample selection, so selection would be the default, but you can press A, and when that is lit, then selecting a random sample, for example, will change every pad as opposed to only the selected single one. Conversely, you can select the bus mode, and that will only change the pads that have the same category or folder assigned to them. I hope that makes sense. So I think here I will be only changing the drums, but the bass sounds will remain the same. Or I can only change the bass sounds. There's a new Euclidean sequencer view. I assigned it by default, as you can see here, to X, where you can toggle it on and off. But also, if you're in the piano roll, you can press select and left to get there, and then you can see what happens a little better. So there are 4 Euclidean sequences, and the different colors represent their length. And then the counts here is how many tricks you place. Oops. And then if you look here at the white dots, that's your notes. So you can have maybe like different densities in different regions, and you can also, of course, make different lengths and get like really crazy or random sequences that way. And there's a randomize button that will just randomize all the values. And while I make these changes, you can see that these notes are simply edited into the pattern data. And the pitch is modulated just by like 8 pitch values, which are currently not You cannot change them manually. And in the second page you can set the modulation amount, so now there's no pitch modulation. Now there's maybe just very little or a bit more, or like quite extreme. These offsets, they're not implemented yet, but you know, that would allow you to like rotate each sort of the tricks inside each window. Now I want to demonstrate the resampling function. You can resample the master audio to a different sample pad. So I want to record it to B, so I'm going to select the pad 1 here and just go to resample, set it to 2 bars, go to OK. It's going to start now. And I moved the crossfader over, so now we're hearing the recorded sample. You might have seen I inserted a note there, and because I practiced like this, this pattern is 2 bars long already. But what I always do is press start to go to the automation editor and make sure that the slice value here on that note is set to 0, just to kind of lock it in place. And what I did off screen here was I disabled the follow function, because otherwise the automation editor would sort of follow the cursor, and it makes things harder. So now that I have established that, I can just go to the slices mode. I'm just going to quickly ensure that slice count is set to 16, and my input quantization is set to 2. 1 is a 16th note, and so this would be an 8th note. So the input quantization will trigger the note after you press the button later at the next possible grid interval. So it will always be late. I'm going to try to make something cool out of this and record different slice values. So here in the automation editor we should see that these are the slice values that I added. Other things we can automate are the sample number, the volume, the sample length, and I think that's it for now. It's very crude, I apologize. If I enable follow, and we can see the different the 2 bars as they stay alternate in the playback. And you can do cool things, because now of course I can use the crossfader to play with what I had before and what I have now, and blend over, etc. I showed the sample mode before, but I want to demonstrate that you can record performances with it. So for example, let's say I want to play different effects from this pad, so I can maybe and then maybe I want to do the same for like some bass sounds. There you go. When recording the session to a WAV file, the clock will be replaced and will just display the length of the current recording. To record, just press down and go here. You see it will create a WAV file. I noticed that the app will crash if you try to reload your sequence, so I'm sorry for that. Please just don't use it for now. Also, when loading samples, we now get a loading progress bar here. And when you try to load samples while it's already loading, you get sort of a little error. I also started implementing the twin file browser. It's very basic at the moment. You can copy, move and delete files, but only one at a time, and navigate the folders. Just, press A to go to a folder. If it's a WAV file, it will actually load the sample to the current category. I'm gonna like improve a lot of stuff about that. But this is sort of gives reason to the name Noise Commander, because part of my idea was like, what if you had a sequencer that's inside of a Norton Commander file browser? So yeah, you've got like two sides. Yeah, there's not much more to say about it, but that was really a core part of the idea. In the future, you should be also able to browse and edit and copy not only files but pattern data, maybe like samples from one deck to the other, and sequences and clips, etc., etc. Also playlists for your DJ sets. So yeah, I think that'll be really cool. Alternatively to holding A and using the C pad for changing slider values, you can also hold a pad, and that way you can change values for multiple pads quickly. I recorded some tricks or notes to this SFX pad here. And yeah, as you can see, it's blinking. Let's say I wanted to remove some of the tricks, or like all of them, let's say. I just hold L and press the pad for as long I want to erase. Now I'm gonna erase everything. Another addition is that pads can be re-triggered by sliding, like this. Similarly, when holding the mute button, I can mute pads by sliding over them. When in piano mode, the left and right D-pad buttons now change the octave. So that's it for the changes from version 2. In version 3 I added the number of beats setting here. To demonstrate this, I'm gonna load some drum loops. So if I place a note here, of course it doesn't match the tempo, but if I set number of beats, let's say, I'm gonna guess that it's 4 beats. And now you see it's perfectly in tempo. And every time I change the tempo, it will update the pitch value. So let's say I want to go faster. Yeah, and that's really cool in conjunction with slicing. I'm going to quickly load a amen break. The last entry worth mentioning is that the server-side script for Patreon user data now updates itself every hour, meaning it can provide access to new users unattended, and I don't need to manually get in it and unlock new accounts, so people don't have to wait as long. So you just need to wait until the next hour and you should be able to download the app.